Hey, John, unlike some people on this panel who won't give him their full due, I thought Jonathon Gannon called a pretty good game today. Considering the conditions, he didn't blitz as much as some would like him to. I'm not saying any names while we're sitting up here.
Blitz.
But I thought he blitzed when he had to. No blitz more important than the blitz he called that led to the Bradbury interception to take away momentum from Jacksonville, who could potentially have scored on that drive.
Yeah, well, 219 yards begun. This is 3 games in a row. This defense has played pretty well. And remember, 7 of those 21 points was a pick 6. That's not the defense.
Right.
So you're talking about a defense giving up 14 points, and you could say, well, the environment, if you want to make that excuse. But as Hassan Reddick pointed out, they played in the same elements. The Eagles rolled up. I got 401 yards. So they were able to do some things offensively. Jonathon Gannon's defense, they came in number 5 in the NFL. It's only getting better. So how high does he have to go before people start saying, maybe he does know a thing or two about defensive football?
Well, I'm not going to let him get away with that, John. So
Here we
we're going to stay right here, and I'm going to just kick the facts to you. Okay.
Here we go.
So Trevor Lawrence drops a ball inexplicably.
He dropped 2. So.
Well, there you go. So if he doesn't drop those 2 balls, especially the first one, he's got a guy wide open in the flat, or he can run for a first down if he doesn't drop that ball. So that wasn't anything that Jonathon Gannon forced. The only turnover that you can really say that Jonathon Gannon forced was the blitz where Bradbury intercepted the ball, as they were going into the red zone. Other than that, you got Hassan Reddick that beat the tackle twice. One time he actually sacked the guy. The other time and stripped it. The other time he just slapped the ball out of Trevor Lawrence's hands. Okay, so is that scheme, or is that a player making the play? It's a big difference. Now, the circumstances of what we saw as far as the weather and whatnot contributed to that. The thing I don't like that he doesn't have an aggressive mindset. Okay, he let Trevor Lawrence, after Trevor Lawrence had a very lackluster first half. In the second half, he let him get going on that touchdown drive, on that interception drive. They got down into the red zone before he decided to come. He only came after Trevor Lawrence 3 times today. See, I have a problem with the fact that you don't want to heat quarterbacks up when you've proven to yourself and everybody else the last 2.5 weeks that it works. So why are you playing so passive instead of being definitive about who you are and what you're going to present to these young quarterbacks who can't handle the pressure?
Boy, now I'm going to have to defend JG, Seth. I didn't want to have to do that. But Trevor Lawrence completed 11 passes today. I mean, I don't know. This is the modern NFL. Now, granted, you're right. The conditions play into that. But I mean, as a defensive coordinator, he's got to understand what those conditions are. And maybe this is an opportunity where you don't have to risk things on the back end. Oh, because, by the way, you don't have Avonte Maddox. Of course, by the way, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's still learning how to play safety. So this is a perfect environment to sort of maybe, Christian Kirk, the biggest playmaker from a wide receiver standpoint. I think he had 2 catches over 9 targets. Now, you're right in the fact that Trevor Lawrence, and I mentioned that play, that's a completely unforced error. But then you go later in the game, Seth, they had that third one quarterback sneak that he also fumbled. Arguably, that's an unforced error as well. And then he fumbled 2 other times and he threw the interception. He was rattled. He was rattled. Part of that is this is a guy who hasn't been turning the football over. Jacksonville was +7 coming into this game, number 1 in the entire NFL. So I do think the Eagles had him rattled. I do think he was worried. I do think that causes some of the things. But where I will agree with you 100%, and you know this better than anybody, and Nick Sirianni says this all the time, show me a good coach and I'll show you good players. you can't be successful without good players. So, yeah, did Hassan Reddick make plays? That's what he's paid to do. But I can't blame Jonathon Gannon because Hassan Reddick makes big plays. That's what he's here for.
I'm not, John. I'm not blaming him, but I guess my mindset might be just a little bit outdated because I don't ever look at defensive football from a position of risk. I look at it from a position of forcing the issue. I mean, we live in an era now where offensive coaches, they dictate to defensive coordinators, by personnel and and the rules of the game and everything else. They dictate to you who and what you can be. See, I played in an era where, from a defensive perspective, we dictated personnel and everything else. And I see other defenses around the league who have coordinators who have an aggressive mindset that dictate rather than being dictated to. And I want to see this defense and this defensive coordinator evolve to a position where they dictate to offenses so that they can be more dominant, because the more dominant they are moving forward, the better it's going to bode for the offensive side of the ball and the special teams.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think everything is contextual. In different areas, you could be more aggressive. But as I said, we're talking about 30 teams as a larger view. And if you're number 3, whatever the Eagles are this week, because they're going up from number 5, if you're number 3 of 32, contextually, that's pretty good. Now, it's still a small sample size, but we're starting to get into a larger sample size. We're through 4 games. So the point is, if you compare what the Eagles' defense is doing against the other 31 teams, they're well above the mean. They're well above average. They're a top 5 defense. So, yeah, some of it is, and I agree. I've had this discussion with Jim Schwartz many times when he was here. Defense is a reactionary thing. You have to see what the offense is doing and react to it. And that's more true today than it was in different eras when you could intimidate teams and you could hit teams at the great defenses you were on. Seth, a lot of those plays you guys made, there's 15-yard flags today. And all of a sudden, you're down the field and you got an explosive play for the offense because that's how they're calling the game. So,
right.
Yeah, I see your point. And by the way, I like more aggressive defense. I can't stand quarters zone. Everybody in this league plays it. It drives me insane. But, they're up against it from a defensive standpoint. You can only play with the rules you're given, and it becomes more difficult for the defensive side, it seems, every single season.
John, just a couple things that I had to quibble with today, and one of them was, I talked about it earlier, A.J. Brown with a who for what effort on the interception. But late in the game when they're trying to salt the game away, they go for it on 4th and 3, did not make it and give Jacksonville the ball. Of course, he coughed it right back up to him, which preserved it. But would you have kicked a field goal there?
Yeah, I would have kicked a field goal. I mean, and we asked Nick about that after the game, and he didn't want to answer the question, which is a little bit of a surprise because they won the game. So it's sort of like a footnote at this point. But I think because he knows he made a mistake and he didn't want to really discuss it. Look, they were great on 4th downs until they weren't. And 4th downs giveth and they take it away. You saw it. The Eagles were 3 of 4 before that A.J. Brown. They missed on the 4th down there. So they were really putting a lot of pressure on the Jacksonville defense by being aggressive. Conversely, Doug Peterson, who was sort of at the forefront of that when he was here, that Trevor Lawrence play that changed the game was 4th and 3. And as he was rolling out, he dropped the football. You go from 14-0 to think you're going to put this game away to, oh no, here come the Eagles back. So that's one of those things. I do like that the Eagles are aggressive. I do think it puts incredible pressure on the defense. And I think more often than not, it's the right thing to do.
Hey, John, I want to ask you a question. We were debating a short while on this show. right now, as we sit 4 weeks into this season, are the Eagles the best team in the NFL right now?
Yeah, I think they played like the best team. I don't know if they are the best team. I think they played better than anybody else, if that makes sense. I still think Buffalo is more talented, and they struggled today, but they've had some injury issues, especially at safety, as we know. So a lot of this is attrition. Is Jordan Mailata going to be healthy? Is Isaac Seumalo going to be healthy? Darius Slade looked like he was having a good time after the game, so I think he's going to be fine. So much of this is attrition, but I think through 4 games, I think the Eagles have played better than anybody else in the NFL.
John, listen, great stuff. We appreciate you hanging in there, and I guess we'll talk to you next week in Arizona.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, John McMullen covering the Eagles for JAKIB Media. So quickly, before we go to break, we really didn't talk about that 4th and 3 that much. I know if they get the first down, the game's over, and they had converted a couple of 4th and 3s in the game. But why wouldn't they have kicked the field goal? You kick the field goal, it's a simple play. It would have been a 38-yard field goal or something. That cashes the game out. Why would they not do that? And as fate would have it, they give the ball back to Jacksonville there.
Data analytics.
Yes. I knew he was going to say that because I'm thinking the same thing. And that's my problem with today's brand of football right there.
All right, listen, it seems like a simple decision to me to kick that 3.
Hey, listen,
but look, that's our old school mindset. That's simple football.
But is it logical? If
No, it is. That's what I'm
32 to
saying.
21, they can't come back.
Yes, I'm agreeing with you. But this doggone analytics come into play.
But you know what the difference is? The difference is if it works out, then you're a genius. If it doesn't, it makes for great debate this entire week. You know what I'm
Which
saying?
it is, which it will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it's making for a great debate. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We have much more to come on the show, including our game ball presentation. That's coming up on the Eagles postgame show, sponsored by Pond La Hockey, Ocean Casino, 6abc.com, and JAKIB Sports Media. Back after this.